Hi everyone. Let's continue to look at the Scotch Gambit from Black's point of view. The purpose of this video is to look at White's sixth move and explain why it's the best move, the mainline move. Alright, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, that's the Scotch game. Black captures, and then bishop to c4 is the Scotch Gambit. Okay, Black plays knight f6 and attacks the e-pawn. The e-pawn comes forward, attacks the knight, and Black counterattacks the bishop on c4. So the mainline move here is bishop to b5, saving the bishop, pinning the knight, and it's by far the best move in the position. But let's look at some alternatives to see why they don't hold up. What if White takes the knight? Well, then Black's happy to take the bishop and restore the material, and in fact Black will remain up a pawn in the position. So White is not able to regain the pawn he gambited because Black is defending on d4 sufficiently. So Black has an extra pawn and a better position because this pawn duo on c4 and d4 is controlling a lot of space in White's territory, making it hard for him to develop. And Black's not afraid of the move f takes g7. He can just recapture with the bishop, but it's actually better to play queen to e7 first. This check can only be met by either moving the king or blocking with the queen, in which case Black can trade queens and draw the king forward, slowing down White's development, and then he can take on g7. Okay, so Black remains up a pawn and has an excellent position. Just a sample line we'll continue with here. If rook to e1, then Black can castle, get off that e-file, king f1, bishop f5, and Black's doing great. He's got pressure on c2. The knight can come to b4 and further pressure c2. He can get his rooks to the central files. So Black's got basically a winning position. Okay, so let's back up and look at some other sixth move alternatives for White. Well, Black did just push the pawn 2 squares, so White does have this en passant option. Let's say he takes it. Well, then Black should recapture the pawn with his dark squared bishop and get ready to castle on the king side. Now notice the pawn on d4 is poisoned. White can't win it with knight takes d4 because he just loses a piece. The queen can't recapture because of the standard tactic bishop to b4 check with a discovered attack on the queen. So again, White has trouble regaining the pawn that he gambited. So let's say White instead castles. Well, Black can castle, and we'll continue down a sample line. For example, if White pins our knight, we'll just break the pin with h6 and g5, and then we'll pin the white knight. And again, Black's position is great. He's up a pawn, and he's better developed. All right, so nothing to worry about with that en passant capture. So let's go back and consider some more moves. What if White moves the bishop somewhere else other than b5? For example, maybe bishop b3. Well, it's a worse version of the main line because the bishop isn't pinning our knight anymore. There's no pressure on c6 that White gets in the main line. So let's see what might happen. Knight e4, saving the knight and centralizing it. And then maybe castles bishop c5, protecting d4. And Black is doing a little bit better here than he is in the main line since White can't even capture right now on d4. And there's pressure on e5 if that knight should move. And there's no pin here anymore, so Black's doing great. And instead of castling, if White does take the pawn and regains the gambit pawn, then we'll probably still play bishop c5. And if that knight moves, we have bishop takes f2 check, just like in the last video. But there's no threat on c6 because the bishop is misplaced on b3. All right, so that's nothing to worry about. Let's look at a couple more moves. Well, what if white just ignores these threats here? Okay, both pieces are hanging, maybe white castles. Well, that doesn't work out so great. Just take the bishop. If he gives you the opportunity, take the bishop. And then he'll take the knight. And then queen takes f6 is a fine move in the position. White's actually up 2 pawns now, and he's not worried about bishop to g5 here. We can just move the queen to f5, and it's quite comfortable there. It has this whole 5th rank to move along if necessary, and it continues to pressure that bishop and anchor that knight on f3, which is protecting it. So black's doing well, and if you're faced with this check, you can block with the light squared bishop, and you can chase this bishop away and even play for queenside castling. All right, so castling is nothing to worry about. And one more move we'll look at is maybe knight takes d4, again ignoring that both pieces are hanging. Well, if knight takes d4, then again we'll take the bishop. But this is even worse for white. White's actually losing material here because we just uncovered a threat on the d4 knight. So white, if white takes our knight, we get his knight and we're up a piece. So white would have to try knight takes c6, but then black can trade queens and save his knight by playing it to g4, and black is threatening both the knight and the fork on f2, and so white's going to lose material. So that didn't work either. So we considered quite a few moves there for white's 6th move, and I hope that explains why in this position bishop to b5 is played. All right, thanks for watching.